Welcome back to DPI. I'm Jay. Thanks for clicking. If it's your first time here, thanks for joining us. In this video, I'm going to give my critique on Armored Skeptic's review of a Jeranism video. Now, if you're not familiar with Armored Skeptic, that's good. And if you're unfamiliar with Jeranism, well, that's okay too, because now you can find out more about him. Here we'll see Skeptic prove himself to be such a huge ass clown that I don't think we'll ever see him out of makeup.
Number two, it can't be shown to be true.
Can't be shown to be true. We've known that gravity has existed since long before we knew what gravity was.
You're telling me the same force that keeps my feet glued to the Earth's surface also keeps the moon in orbit around the Earth, and same thing that keeps us in orbit around the sun. That right there makes no sense.
I see. It makes sense if you know what gravity is. See, Newton told us how gravity worked, but he wasn't able to figure out what gravity was. It wasn't until Einstein came along and told us that gravity is when large masses sitting in space displace space the same way a boat displaces water in a bathtub.
This is how water is displaced by a boat in a bathtub.
Normally, space has no properties, no gravity, no direction, no up or down, but when you add a planet or a planetoid or a sun into space, you basically bend space. You push space out away from that object, and space tries its best to force its way back to where it used to be.
Space tries its best to force its way back to where it used to be? I mean, what? What the fuck? So, does space ever get back to where it was, or where it used to be? And what happens if space does get back to where it used to be? What happens then?
Normally, space has no properties, no gravity, no direction, no up or down, but when you add a planet or a planetoid or a sun...
What? What happens? Space all of a sudden gains properties like gravity, direction, up and down?
You basically bend space, you push space out away from that object, and space tries its best to force its way back to where it used to be, but it can't because there's an object in the way.
And as if in the way is a concept that space observes or is aware of.
And instead ends up pushing other planets and ourselves down towards that surface.
Yeah.
Now, the reason the moon doesn't come down and hit the Earth is because it's traveling so fast that it's escaping the world's gravity, but not fast enough to escape the world's gravitational pull, and that's why it is in orbit.
So, the moon goes fast enough to escape Earth's gravity, but not Earth's gravitational pull. So there's two different types of gravity. So, does that mean that Earth also goes fast enough to escape the sun's gravity, but not fast enough to escape the sun's gravitational pull? Yeah.
Once you get man to believe he can live on a globe, what else could you convince him of? That man went to the moon, perhaps, with the technology of an Etch-a-Sketch?
Sir, I will have you know that we had perfected the Etch-a-Sketch by then. Do you realize we had computers in the 60s, right? You know we had computers back then.
Oh yeah, Skeptic. They had computers back in the 60s.
These test engineers are checking out a sophisticated collection of telescopes, gyroscopes, and electronics for Project Apollo. This guidance and navigation system will be mounted in an Apollo spacecraft to aid our 3 astronauts on their voyage to the moon and return. The miniaturized computer at the very heart of this system is our story today on Science Reporter. And to learn about the guidance and navigation system which will make this possible, we talked with Mr. Eldon Hall, Deputy Associate Director of the Instrumentation Lab.
The guidance and navigation system consists of 2 measurement elements, controls, a computer, and a computer display and controls. The inertial measurement unit, shown up here but normally mounts in back, consists of gyros and accelerometers that measure the angles and velocity of the spacecraft in this fashion. The The spacecraft rotates, the inertial measurement unit holds the reference so that angles can be measured. The sextant is an instrument very similar to that used by the sailors to navigate on the surface of the Earth.
The remarkable little computer at the heart of the guidance and navigation system, we talked with Mr. Albert Hopkins, Assistant Director of the Instrumentation Laboratory.
This computer is similar to its ground-based big brothers that are dominating our lives so much today, in that it's fundamentally a high-speed adding machine with the additional features of having a memory into which it can write results and from which it can take data, very much as an accountant has his ledger. And it also, it has a self-contained list of instructions, analogous to an accountant's training.
To see the Apollo guidance and navigation system in operation, we visited the systems test laboratory and talked with Mr. Ramon Alonso, Assistant Director of the Instrumentation Laboratory.
One of the interesting aspects of the guidance system is the way in which the astronaut controls the guidance equipment through the computer. And he does so by means of the display and keyboard, which is a subsystem. The system of codes used is reasonably simple. It consists of a numeric verb and a numerical noun.
These are little sentences made of numbers, then?
Essentially, if you strain a bit.
Now, how is this angle actually measured?
It's done automatically via the computer. The astronaut must first identify to the computer the star and the landmark that he's planning to use.
An example of it might be a verb 16, which is continuous display in decimal, and a noun, which is time. I've picked these. I know it work. I've now told the computer what I want, but I have not yet told it to go ahead and do what I want.
So that this tells the computer what to do in sequence. If we look over here, I can show you more about how the computer operates. The adding machine of this computer is a high-speed arithmetic unit, which carries out the fundamental arithmetic processes. All of the complex operations that we've seen today can be broken down into long lists of arithmetic.
I see.
When I press enter, the computer proceeds to display time, and it does so, giving me times from launch, perhaps, in hours and hundreds of hours, 98.56 hours.
Then, as he's positioning the spacecraft and the sextant, the computer is measuring the angles between the two. When the astronaut is satisfied that the star is superimposed upon the landmark, he pushes the mark button, telling the computer to record these angles and the time.
The arithmetic unit receives its data from a memory divided into two sections, and it puts its results back into the erasable portion of that memory. This is the portion which is similar to the accountant's ledger.
From that information, the computer can compute the position of the spacecraft in space.
Well, now that you know the position, what can you do about it if it isn't right?
The computer can position the spacecraft, turn on the motors, and steer it, then shut the motors off.
So you'll be coasting on a new and corrected path.
That's right.
What is the fixed memory?
The fixed memory is unique to the space age. It is a memory which cannot be written into by the arithmetic unit, and it contains information which must last the entire mission. It's here for safety. This
the
contains
location of stars and things you wouldn't want to forget.
That's right. Operate the entire computer. Input data, which comes from the angle measuring devices that we saw earlier, or the keyboard, comes in through input conditioning circuits and is available in the erasable memory. The arithmetic unit can operate upon this input data and compute results designed to be output. These results are placed in a particular portion of the erasable memory where they are sent through output conditioning circuits out to other instruments which need this data, such as, for instance, the displays or perhaps a rocket motor.
Now, you say this computer is very much like land-based computers, and yet I think of them as occupying bays of equipment. You've got all this squeezed into a little box. How did you do that?
And